Uh-huh.
What's your favorite scary movie?
I don't know.
You have to have a favorite. What comes to mind?
You are listening to Scream with Ryan C. Showers, the podcast for Scream fans just like you. Join Ryan every week as he takes a deep dive into the horror film series that defined the 90s and redefined the genre. Scream with Ryan C. Showers is your source for scene and quote analysis, character dissections, and the latest news about upcoming installments of the Scary Movie franchise.
I hear you like horror movies, Kirby, but do you like them as much as him?
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Scream with Ryan C. Showers podcast, where the film critic meets the Scream fan twice a week, every Tuesday and Friday. I'm your host, Ryan C. Showers. Thank you for joining me for today's episode. Now, before I go any further, I need to thank the producers of Scream with Ryan C. Showers. They include Ashley Summers from the Squirrel and Spud Shop. She and I host a Scream game every Wednesday on Instagram, so please check that out. I also need to thank TJ Jones, who comes from the Box Office Buds podcast. He is responsible for all of the graphic design of Scream with Ryan C. Showers in terms of new episode cards on social media promotion. So thank you so much to TJ for all he does. I also need to thank contributors Mark Karim, Mark Vieira, and Joey Velisi. Joey Velisi is the guy who writes the scripts for Scream with Ryan C. Showers. Episode 112, we wrote a Scream 7 script, which I read out loud, about the end of the Carpenter sisters storyline. And then the sequel to that was called Screams. It was centered around the legacy of Gail Weathers. That's episode 155. And Joey is currently working on the final Scream, which this is a product that is going to examine the relationship, the marriage of Mark and Sydney. Unlike the real Scream 7, this will feature Mark Kincaid as Sydney's husband, and she won't have a teenage daughter. Both of her daughters will be young, so it'll be much different than the real Scream 7 we're going to get. But that is going to be coming to the podcast late summer, early fall, so please tune in for that. I need to thank everybody over at Patreon. Thank you to everybody who subscribes to the Patreon at any and every tier. I'm an independent entity, so any bit of support that comes into the Patreon goes back into the podcast. Joining the Patreon gets you ad-free and early access to every episode, as well as the opportunity to join the community of the show. We have group chats across social media. In particular, Instagram is really the hub of the podcast community. More importantly, joining the Patreon is the vessel in which you would use to come onto the podcast, either in a one-on-one situation with me or a small panel. In addition, there's a guaranteed invite every month to a big group Zoom recording about a Scream topic. An exciting feature of the podcast is the audio commentary episodes. Every Scream fan knows what it was like listening to Wes Craven do the audio commentaries for the original trilogy and Scream 4, with Marianne Maddalena and Kevin Williamson and Patrick Lussier. And what I'm trying to do for my Patreon subscribers is I am going to be performing an audio commentary of a Scream or a Scream-related movie, one per month, every month. And my goal is to try to approach these as I'm doing deep analytical analysis about the characters, about the themes, about just general reaction. So it's something that I'm really proud of and I hope continues to be a cherished part of the podcast. So the commentary is available as a normal podcast episode for anybody to listen to like they would any other podcast, but it will also be available as a video watch along. So everybody, please go over to Patreon, subscribe to Scream with RCS. I would be eternally grateful. So I need to go through and thank everybody over at Patreon who is subscribed as a stab investor or a daddy/mama Ghostface. So the daddy/mama Ghostface of the Patreon are Carrie Tenney, Brett Janovich, Corey Wilson, and Stevie Shears. The stab investors include Allie, Mark Karim, Tamika Jones, David D., Garrison Nichols, Gustavo Mora, Jess Mariano, Joey Nobarini, aka The Vault, Josh Calamari, Josh Carr, Scream Queens podcast, both Josh and Justine, The Horror Project podcast, Justin Weir, Kevin Abner, Mark Vieira, PWO5, aka Philip Douglas, Quentin Harrison, and Sam Levy. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Scream with Ryan C. Showers. I'm your host, Ryan C. Showers. Please welcome my very special guest today, Joey Nobarini, aka The Vault. Hey, Joe.
Hey, how's it going?
Oh my gosh. So I have to say, of anybody on the internet, I don't think there was a single person, a single soul who was more excited or provided more hype for I Know What You Did Last Summer other than you. What say you?
Thank you. Yeah, no, I mean, I love these releases, like leading up, like for the Scream movies, and they just take me back to like when I was younger and like following that. So for this one, it was like, all right, this is like a nice break in between Scream. So I'm like, I'm gonna dive all in.
Well, you definitely did. And like, I'm not surprised because like, you do a lot for Scream, sure. And I mean, it's literally, your entity, shall we call it, is literally called the Scream Vault, right? So I call it the Vault. I don't know why I do. I call it the Vault. because I guess everything is about Scream to me. So, but your entity is called the Scream Vault, yet there's so much more you do besides just Scream. It's like it's the urban legends. It's I think you do the faculty. There's a lot about this time and this era that you cover with your images that you produce and the videos that you do. But you also do a lot for I Know What You Did Last Summer, and I Still Know. So I think the love is real, and it was just so fun to see you covering everything. Honestly, like you kept me up to date sometimes with just new TV spots and stuff like that. So thank you.
Yeah, I had a ball. Thank you.
All right. So before I ask you your opinion about I Know What You Did Last Summer, the requel, I need to ask what is, and I know that you hate this shit, but I don't care. What is your ranking of the five I Know What You Did Last Summer entities?
Right. So I'm gonna say, do you want me to go from beginning, like best to worst,
Yeah,
or
best to
best
worst.
to worst? I Know What You Did Last Summer.
Uh,
I Still Know What You Did Last
uh,
Summer. This I Know What You Did Last Summer.
okay.
The TV show,
Yeah.
and then whatever that one was.
Is there anything in the vault of I'll Always Know?
No, no, there's probably like a few pictures, but nothing like of anything that I was excited actually to watch it back in 2006, and then I put it on. I was in my bedroom and I put it on and I was like, "What the hell am I watching?" Yeah, it was awful.
Well, so my ranking is exactly the same. So, I guess like, I whenever I first saw I Know What You Did Last Summer, I was very mixed. And I would be lying to say that I remain not mixed. I mean, like the second viewing made me enjoy the movie more. I think that my flaws as a film critic remain, but I was able to enjoy the movie as just, for what it is. So I'm just curious, this movie was really hyped up by you for the past couple of months. Were your thoughts about I Know What You Did Last Summer when you first saw it versus where you stand now?
Well, when I first saw it, I walked out of the theater and I literally went and texted you, and I think I was voice memoing it because I was like, I can't put this all into a text message. So I just babbled on to you about how confused I was.
Yeah.
Because mainly I think the main takeaway from that first viewing to even now is like, our legacy characters. I wanted more from that. And if I didn't get more, that's fine. But then the result that we ended up getting of, we're spoiling here, but Ray being the killer, I wanted some more juice, some more like, I wanted something more to that to understand exactly why he became that way.
Yeah.
What made that jump from I Still Know What You Did Last Summer, him always wanting to protect Julie,
Yeah.
to why he is now about ready to say, "This is gonna hurt, sweetheart." Like, you
Yeah.
know what I mean? But I always had a weird feeling about Ray and thought if the movies were to ever continue,
Mhm.
that is how they should go. They should expand upon the Billy Blue, all of it,
Yeah.
you know?
Well, so can I just ask you before we go on with your opinion and overall reaction,
Yeah.
if they would have made the third movie back in the 90s or early 2000s, like around the time of like, right after Scream 3, right? Had they made the movie back then, do you think that the movie would have ended with like a nice trilogy arc for Julie and Ray to be happily ever after, like Gail and Dewey? Or do we think that what we saw today would have come to fruition and Ray would have been the fisherman to Julie in the final chapter back then?
I'm not sure on
Yeah.
that. I think it might have got ruined, to be honest. I think if they ever made that, like, shortly thereafter, I think they would have been so confused into what direction to go to
Yeah.
because they would have still been focusing, like they still do, on that box office,
Right.
right? They would have saw that downgrade, whatever. There was less made for I Still Know What You Did Last Summer than I Know What You Did Last Summer. And I think they would have taken it into a weird direction, which they eventually did. But I feel like this was the route to go in order to include the legacy characters,
Yeah.
if that
Well,
makes sense.
it does make sense. And like, the thing that I give this movie credit for is like the fact that they did this with Freddie Prinze Jr. makes me believe like, okay, that they wanted to take a big swing that Scream never did, and that they wanted to be something. They didn't want to just be the Scream ripoff. They didn't want to just be Scream's little sister or little brother. They wanted to do something really bold that was their own, and that was making one of the legacy characters the fisherman. And of course, Scream never did that, and I don't think Scream ever will do that as it pertains to the trio. I mean, Dewey's dead, but you know what I mean. So I applaud the big audacious nerve that Jennifer Caitlin Robinson had in that moment, in that decision. My beef with her is the fact that she didn't give them more time to explain what happened in their marriage, how Ray became this way. And specifically, I wanted to hear it from his mouth, like why, what his motive was, why he was doing this in painstaking detail. I wanted a Roman Bridger type monologue. Like, I think anything for two characters that had been married and had been a couple, and we had known as a couple for so many years, to then do this to them without giving them the time and space to emotionally react, I think was a big problem.
Right. And, that's how I initially walked away from the movie feeling. I still have a little bit of that. But when rewatching the movie, I it was fun to see his and Stevie's dynamic
Yeah.
because when you first watch the movie, it kind of goes undetected and feels like they're doing everything that good characters would do. Rewatching, you realize that, holy crap, they're shooting glances at each other that is just like so blatantly obvious. Um, and it makes it fun. He's trying to protect her. And I look at Stevie as almost his way of looking at Julie.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? So I see like, oh, she's going through stuff and like I feel like he's trying to rewrite history in a weird way, but then he's also lost it and he's
Yeah.
pissed that the town has just wiped away everything. And I don't know, you just so I don't it leaves room for like interpretation of what happened.
Yeah.
So I'm not that pissed about it.
Well, so here's the thing. I actually think that like I see Ray and his protection of Stevie not as like through a Julie lens. I see it as like Ray seeing something in her that he used to see in himself because of course we know from the original film he says I don't have the money in the family to get out of this like the rest of you do. Please. Like he says that to her when they hit the guy. And I think that he sees Stevie in a similar situation that is different from the rest of her friends in that group, and I think that he does have like a very I think he sees himself in her and that's why he goes along with this. But I guess, and I guess like here's the one thing that I think you'll appreciate and I think fans of I Still Know will appreciate is, the first movie sets him up as a red herring that doesn't pay off. That's nice. But in I Still Know What You Did Last Summer, he has a darker edge to him. As he is trying to get from Southport or from where he is to the Bahamas. Like he becomes a much darker person over that journey. And for me, if they were doing a stepping stone, okay, Ray is suspicious in the first movie. He gets darkened by this journey in the second one. Maybe it makes more sense that he would go down this route. I guess I wanted more explanation if that makes sense.
Right. No, and I mean that's perfect. Perfect thinking. You know what I mean? Because even when I Still Know What You Did Last Summer started, he approaches Julie and Julie's like going through it still, with the year anniversary and he's got like no time to even care about her emotions.
Yeah.
So I can imagine, after I Still Know What You Did Last Summer, they're trying to make things work and she's still trying to, get somewhere and he's not as like I don't and so there was their clash.
Yeah.
And then he eventually, I don't know. But you did ask, and I think I want to make sure I answered it correctly. From my first viewing to now, I love the movie. I think
Yeah.
it's wicked fun. I think they did a great job.
And, so I have a question though. Do you
Yeah.
think so as it pertains to Julie, she's very sharp in this movie. And when I say sharp, I don't mean sharp in the smart sense. I mean sharp in like the almost prickly sense. Like she's not warm and fuzzy at all. She's not the Sidney Prescott or Gail Weathers approaching Sam with concern in Scream 5, right? She has a lot of distance. Even like the podcaster, she says something like, Julie James wrote me an email back talking about boundaries. I thought that was funny. And so in a way, like I think that because she is so, I don't want to say unlikable because that's not accurate because Julie is a likable character holistically. But because she is like that, and we don't really know what happened in their marriage, we don't suspect Ray as much because we can see that the marriage probably would have been a nightmare on both of their ends.
Right. Yeah, no, I mean, she's definitely rigid. So she's definitely different. She's not the same. It was kind of jarring at first watching it. I'm not gonna lie. It was like, whoa, what is this Jennifer Love Hewitt portraying the character? Is the character supposed to be like this? I just wasn't sure. You know what I mean? But watching it makes sense. She's annoyed. She's having to go through this. she's I can understand the rigidness, especially being, as you get older, you kind of
Get grumpy.
your well, your level to put up with bullshit just kind of
Mm-hmm.
dissipates. So
Right.
it comes off grumpier. You come off as the old mean person, but you're just kind of, I don't know.
No,
I,
makes sense.
I don't know about that.
So, okay. So, I think we've kind of covered the basis as it pertains to Julie and Ray. But is there anything else you want to say about them in particular, about like their interaction at the end? Do you wish that there had been more in terms of a big fight? Do we think
Yeah,
it plays okay without the fight?
I think it plays okay without the fight, but I mean, who wouldn't want that? You know what I mean? It's the same thing. It goes hand in hand with that. I wanted more like dialogue from Ray to Julie about, what the hell are you doing? I want, like, she should be like, what the fuck are you doing? What are you doing? And I wish he had more dialogue there. They had more of a tussle. But I think, I mean, what could they have done? Run around that bar two more times?
I think that, like, the way that I would have envisioned it, or of how I would have had it go down, is like Julie arrives and like I see him encroaching on her with the hook, like physically like pushing her, backing her up as they have this really this fight, and then maybe she hits him with something, and then they wrestle. Then maybe Stevie does something to hurt him, and then I think they missed a big opportunity for Julie to be the one to kill him. That is like, if I could change one thing about this, I would have said Julie should have been the one to end Ray, just because it was, this was her ex-husband. This wasn't even this it's not like he was some high school classmate she hasn't seen
Right.
and heard from since high school. Like, this is somebody that was not only she survived these things with, but then was married to. And I think that that would have been very poetic for her and him, and almost to have like a Sydney and Roman kind of moment with the hand holding. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. I mean, that would have been really, really cool. But at the same time, I have to say, and I might be pivoting, I feel like Ava is badass. I think Jay Suey Wonders is such an amazing actress. She really, really portrayed being, I guess, AKA the new Julie really well, So I understood her killing him because it was all her friends he was killing, which I believe fully that he killed everybody. I don't think Stevie killed anyone. She would have killed Danica, but I don't, that didn't happen. I don't think Stevie killed anybody.
Okay. So pausing the Ava discussion just here for a second.
Yeah.
Are you pro or anti Annika?
I'm pro Danica. I mean, it's not my type of person I'd be hanging out with.
Yeah.
But honestly, I'm not hanging out with really many 26-year-olds anyway. So, but my niece is 25, so I understand how they speak. My niece is nowhere near as vapid, but
Okay. But what are your thoughts on her washing up on the beach?
her washing up on the beach, all right, it's a little, in the gut somewhat by Stevie with the hook, but I do understand keeping her around. Is it plausible? I don't know. I mean, maybe if they set it up that she was a swimmer, I mean, like a professional swimmer, but there is, I love the movie and I will defend it, but there is at the very end some of it that I would change. Like,
Okay.
and I don't want to like go forward with what you want to ask, but like the divas up for being one of the last things that's said just takes you a little bit out of it. And like I wouldn't put that because they shouldn't be so happy
Yeah.
and jokey. But
It's very flippant the way that they act in the end. It's just it's treated like something that's supposed to be very serious is not treated seriously. And maybe that's a Gen Z thing. I don't know, but it's not it doesn't feel so great in my opinion.
yeah, I didn't like that comment or
Yeah.
like that kind of dynamic. I would have liked a little bit more.
Well, so you mentioned Ava, and like I do think Ava is kind of getting overshadowed because there's so much discussion about Annika, about Ray and Julie. There's of the other friends, even like Milo has his fans, which I think is like is a fun thing because he is cute. But like, I'm personally a Teddy fan, but that's
he
neither here nor there. Are you so wait? So okay, Joey, are you a Teddy or Milo for I Know What You Did Last Summer?
um,
You're a Milo, I can tell.
no, I'm a Teddy, but Jonah is just adorable. No, I'm a Teddy. I feel like toxic men.
Me too. Me too. Oh my god. So, okay, but Ava, she is kind of getting I don't think she's getting her due. I think that the actress does it does a good job. Compare her to say the lead actress from the Final Destination Bloodlines. Like I think that like she does get more opportunity to act here, and I think that like there's a lot of good emotion that comes from her. And if there is a sequel, I think that like I'm kind of glad that she would be in it.
I think she's great. You said good, so I don't know if you are just meaning that as flat out. It was good, but
I'm good. I'm not great. I'm good. I think she's
I
good.
see, I think she was great. Like I took some notes like for this, and it
Okay.
was like that whole in the beginning, like when they get into the accident and they're on their way, like even when they didn't get into an accident, when the truck crashes, her rawness of like just of what's going on in her reaction, I feel like is so it's done so well. It's so believable. It takes you right in to her, and then especially in the car on the way home, they realize that Teddy is like and Danica are not taking them to the police station, but they're going to Teddy's house. It just becomes so haunting, and she I feel like is a big part of that.
Yeah.
And when the score, like when she says, "Fine, I'll keep it a secret" or whatever, and she turns around and that score comes on, and you just see the rawness in her face. I feel like I don't know. I feel like she just did a great job.
So
I loved her.
are you overall happy with the new cast in terms of the young?
I actually was. I mean, I don't feel like they were wooden, which
Yeah.
we've had, and I'm not critiquing. God, if anybody's listening, don't come after me. I'm not critiquing. I spoiler alert. I will say this is more rewatchable than 2022. That's just my opinion right now. Maybe that will change. But no, I thought the new cast was great. I actually believed them. Nothing felt forced to me. It just felt like they were just a group of friends that already had everything established, and they just were without trying to set up too much.
And I have to say, I didn't miss whenever Ray and Julie weren't around, I wasn't thinking about them. So I think that's actually a really good compliment to the new cast is that
Yeah.
like I wasn't missing Ray and Julie. And like, I did the screen times for Ray and Julie and they are definitely under the trio in 5 and 6. And like it's versus whenever I'm watching Scream 6, I'm like, okay, when's Gail coming back? When's Gail coming back? I didn't feel that about Ray and Julie here. And the only way to attribute that is to the new cast and the fact that I do think that Jennifer Caitlin Robinson, she does a really good job at basically not copy and pasting the original. She makes her whole or her new story, her new vibe. I mean, there are people are really overemphasizing the Easter eggs, which I don't think the Easter eggs here are as on the nose or as
No.
obnoxious as Scream 5 or 6. I actually think that like this feels like a new chapter in a lot of ways, a new structure.
Right.
The only thing that's overly Easter eggy, in my opinion, is everything SMG.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that I mean, there's the Croaker Queen, but the Easter eggs, like you're saying, they're not anything that are like, "Hey, I'm an Easter egg. Did you see me?" Like, do you know what I mean? Like that's and people probably like this line, but oh, sounds like something Gail Weathers would do. Like some of it, just that stuff, kind of like it works, but comes off cheesy sometimes for me anyway. I feel like that's like, God, don't do too much. Just kind of make this like make me feel like I'm in the world. I don't need to know I'm in the world. So I feel like this movie did that very well. Like they have Julie scream from the first movie for the podcast. There was a whole bunch, but there wasn't anything that was like too much. As far as SMG, I mean, I was completely like, what the hell is going on? I was
Yeah.
so happy, but I was like so confused because I'm like, I literally kept thinking about everyone else and was like, people are going to come after this movie for this. I don't understand how this is believable. But on my second and third viewing, I realized, you pick up on more and more of what the cast is actually saying. And when Danica is already early on in the movie explaining that she's been having these nightmares, and Danica is so vapid as a person, you know what I mean? I guess that kind of self absorbed, snobby, like I think we all know what I mean.
Yeah.
Like she's that kind of person. She cares about appearances. So when she's having these nightmares already, she's already been attacked. She then goes to the cemetery and sees her picture, realizes she's a croaker queen. It's all on her brain that I understand that why she had the dream. Now, as far as if people were gonna go like, oh well, how does she know who Helen is or anything? Well, she don't. That's why I feel like we're not seeing Helen on screen. We're seeing
Danica's
Danica's
version.
version of Helen on screen.
Yeah.
And I I think that's so good. And when it was shot, the way it's shot, I know Jennifer Caton Robinson is a Buffy fan. I immediately was like, Buffy.
Yeah.
I don't know if you did, but when they were like face to face together, I was like, I just thought of Buffy and the first.
Yeah.
And it just was like, I'm like, okay, I'm digging this.
I thought Sarah looked phenomenal. I mean, and honestly, she gave such a good performance for being for intentionally just diving into the camp and like in the intentional like sassy cunty thing that she was doing.
Right.
I thought she was excellent, and I'm just like, ah, Sarah, we we miss you. But no, so I thought I liked. So it's hard. Like on the one hand, like, is it a dream come true? Does no, it feels over the top. But on the other hand, I love the fact that Sarah Michelle Gellar did this cameo for us. And
Yeah.
so it's a weird balance. It's a weird thing.
Over the top, but so is Danica.
Right. And yeah, we're
So,
not even gonna go there.
well, you kind of have to understand
do.
her over the top dream. I don't know,
Yeah.
like that. I feel like it's forgivable because it makes sense within her story.
Yeah. I would be so much nicer to Danica if she would have died. I really would have. If she wouldn't have washed up on that damn beach, but that is my I've had it this summer. So the other big cameo is Brandy, and that is, goes back to, of course, I still know what she did last summer. Joey, what are your thoughts on Brandy?
No, I love Brandy. I was hoping she'd be in this movie, so I was pretty happy. I had a feeling it was going to go that way. I mean, secrets are tough to keep, and people were hinting like watch the credits, and so you kind of know that she was going to be there. So I wasn't shocked, but I was a little bit. But I at first was put off because it was like she was talking when she's watching the news and seeing it, and her husband or boyfriend, we don't know, whatever, who that is. He says, "Oh, isn't that your old college roommate?" And from there, the way she speaks about Julie is like, I don't know.
Weird.
There
Yeah,
was
I get what you're
no,
saying.
it wasn't the same dynamic that I would have thought they would have continued in.
Yeah.
But I guess, I mean, I eventually I came around to it. You know what I mean? I saw it 4 times, so I eventually came around to it. But at first, I was like, why is she being like, oh, that woman? Everyone's
Oh.
trying to kill that woman. But I loved having her on there. I thought it was a fun scene, and I feel like it can go places.
Yeah. I mean, it's like honestly, I don't want to say I'm not saying it's my favorite scene, but
No,
it's a scene. It's probably my favorite Julie scene. I just love the urgency of it. And like you're right, the first half of the scene is weird with Brandy and her husband. I think that like honestly, we could have gotten rid of him and just had like a shorter moment where she just sees the news and reacts, and then we get the door knock, and then she goes and meets Julie. I think that would have been a little bit stronger of a scene. But I don't know, I just seeing them back together again, and honestly, I will say Brandy, like Sarah Michelle Gellar, so good at her performance. Like I saw whenever she started talking, I was like, "That's it. That's the girl I remember." And
yeah.
I love that. I love that she still has that spirit all these years later. So if there's a sequel, I really hope that this wasn't just some fun thing that they threw in there just for the heck of it. That they actually take this and run with it and focus on this as much as they do Danica.
See,
Not, sorry.
I'm not I'm not sure on that because I don't know if it was completely planned or if just some things were cut, because the letter that Julie is holding that says it's not over is the letter we saw when Jen Caton Robinson first posted it behind the scenes of
Okay.
Julie holding the letter, right? So, I mean, do you remember in the movie Julie getting a letter
Yeah, I now
any
remember.
other time?
Yeah.
She doesn't get a letter in the, but in the previews there was that letter moment. You know what I
Right.
mean, of her receiving it, and it's written exactly the same way. So I wonder if they were just going to end the movie with her getting that letter,
Yeah.
and then that, like, do you know what I mean? And then they added the Brandy thing in after. I wish they showed her getting the letter and then go to Brandy, because then it would put more of the time reference. Because Julie said it's been a weird month.
Right, exactly. I agree. Like that would have been a really strong. I didn't even think about that because like there is a little bit of weirdness. Like, yes, I would have liked to have seen Julie get the letter and open it. So you're absolutely right there. Wow. Yeah.
There's a lot though that I see that is not in the movie. And like I'm curious, I feel like Jen Caton Robinson is like kind of us. She's a fan and she gets like the little things we all like, like we like director's cuts. I feel like there will be a director's cut. I hope there will be a director's cut because there's just some things I saw in the previews that I did not see making it to the final cut that I feel like could still fit in. They
It-
could have still went on and ended the movie with Stevie
Mm.
doing that whole turnaround and the killer popping out. I mean, I think that was probably an alternate ending too, but
Well, if anybody would know, it would be you. So
yeah.
with your vast library of um all of the TV spots and all of the footage and all of the pictures. Um, so I have to ask, what are your thoughts on the horror aspects of this movie in terms of the kills, the chase scenes, the suspense? Because that is something that's so crucial to the original, of course, is the suspense and the chase. Not so much the blood, but just, or, but like the kills are very memorable in the original because they were done in an artful way. These kills are more modern, I think. But what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, in the original, I don't there wasn't many kills, you know. You had Max getting stabbed and then dragged, and then that was it. I mean, the most epic chase scene was obviously Helen. I don't feel we got a long ass drawn out chase scene, but I still feel like all those scenes were fun. You know what I mean? I feel like Teddy had a good chase scene. I feel like that was a chase scene. And you know, him crawling on the ground, screaming, "Mom," just reminded me of Drew Barrymore. Like a nice nod to that, which I thought was cool. I didn't feel like was weird on the nose or anything copycat. I just thought it was cool to see.
I also thought that about Casey Becker in terms of him yelling for his mom and just like the fact that like the dad is involved in that scene. I'm not so hot on that scene as you are. I think that there's just a little bit that it's filmed in a weird way. It just feels kind of choppy in the editing. It's not so smooth for me. But I did like that emotional aspect of the parent child thing because that goes back to Scream 1. That is like
Yeah,
the heart of the opening in a lot of ways. So
that
go on.
choppiness made the tension for me
Mhm.
rise. That's how I felt. But overall, I feel like, you know, they had some good scares and good suspense. Is it the scariest thing I've ever seen? Of course not. I don't feel like any of the movies are. You know, I don't even feel like Scream is the scariest movie I've ever seen. Do I feel like it fits right into, say, Urban Legend? I Know What You Did Last Summer, Scream, The Faculty. Does it fit into all of that? Even Urban Legend Final Cut, Valentine. Does it fit into all of that? Yes. I mean, for people slamming it, and they are, I think is absolutely crazy because, and I'm not knocking another movie to lift another movie, but it's I feel a valid case is you cannot tell me that Hard Eyes is better than this. There is so much gimmick, so much cheese, way over the top camp in Hard Eyes, and everybody just fell in love and swooned all over that. Granted, it's not an established IP, but I Know What You Did Last Summer wasn't this huge IP like Scream either. You know,
Mhm.
for us people, it was. But I think they did a good job. I mean, I still Know What You Did Last Summer changes its style from the first one,
Yeah,
and this kinda changes its style even more.
right.
It shows that it could go different places and different routes and still have a fisherman killer and just have different ways of being rather than, you know, you see Scream 5 and Scream 6, they all kinda have the same story beat, which I hope for 7 kind of just breaks
Yeah.
that apart a little bit and doesn't feel like I'm okay, act 3, okay, you know what I mean? I don't know.
I have to say, I'm glad you brought up Hard Eyes because I was actually literally in the shower this morning thinking about all the people who are criticizing I Know What You Did Last Summer now, and there's valid criticism, but the people who turn around and pretended Hard Eyes was so cool and cute and gave it a pass for the humor, the Gen Z of it. I think like Hard Eyes is almost like the perfect example of like humor that is 1000% Gen Z. I don't think I Know What You Did
Yeah.
Last Summer is nearly as bad as it. We notice it because we have the original classic to compare I Know What You Did Last Summer to. Whereas Hard Eyes is just like that is the most online movie script I've ever seen in my entire life. It's just I don't enjoy Hard Eyes as much as everybody else does. But so that's a great comparison. I'm glad that you brought it up. But the problem is like with I Know What You Did Last Summer is like we can't even just blame like that kind of hypocrisy. The divisiveness with this movie goes deep. Like there are some people who think like my friend TJ, he thinks this is like the best movie of the year. He's like 5 out of 5 best movie of the year. And I've had other people tell me it's the worst movie of the year. And like there's a lot of honestly, like no two people have had the same opinion. And I've talked
Yeah,
to hundreds of people about this movie, and almost everybody has surprised me with it.
yeah, I mean, I feel like it's a movie you definitely have to go see again. I and again, and I know that sounds crazy if you didn't like it, but you see it differently. Like, I felt like Danica was doing jokey things after died and she was in the police station. Like, some of the things she said felt like a joke, but after watching it, you realize she's not joking. She's not like, "Am I a widow?" She's literally like, "Am I a widow?" It's not done for the joke. It can be interpreted in different ways. That's how I feel. I don't know if that's what people are talking about with the too much joking. I've heard people say it was like a parody, and I have to disagree. It's something that you have to see. I'm with TJ. I think it is one. It's a great movie, and it's a great movie to put into the ranking of all those ones that we love as slashers. I definitely will be rewatching it when it comes on video.
Well, it's gonna be part of our lives. Like for people who love Scream, I mean, this is non-negotiable. Even if we don't like it, unless if it's, I'll always know. I mean, like this movie is gonna be a part of our lives. I see a huge difference in the fact that it was directed by a woman, Jennifer Caton Robinson. I think she brings a very different perspective to it. I think that maybe we get a lot of the risks because she's a woman, but there's also just different like stylistic choices. And I've noticed because of her eye behind the camera, for better and worse, because I think that there are some great things that she does, but I also think there's some really terrible things that she does. But I want to ask, so do you have a favorite scene in the movie?
I mean, I do love that Sarah Michelle Gellar scene, I know, but for the whole movie part, as far as, like, it being quote unquote "real," favorite scene, I don't know. I don't know if I have a favorite scene. I mean, it would definitely be yeah, I don't know, to be honest with you.
Well, my favorite scene is the scene that ironically, the scene that we saw in the trailer in terms of like the second fiance
Oh,
getting killed,
yes.
just because there's so much. I love filmmaking, and there's so much that's done in that sequence with like the way that it builds suspense. There's a little bit of Scream 5 in there, but there's like I love that the bathtub is filled with that red liquid that looks like blood. The
Mhm.
sound design, the cross cutting, the blood is good in that scene, and I love the crescendo. You know what the last shot reminded me of Madeline Klein walking in and seeing her fiance. It actually reminded me of the Dewey and Judy scene at Jenny and Marnie's house in the alternate deleted version
Yeah.
of Scream 4. It's just the way that he was staged. Just felt very Scream 4 to me.
Yeah, and it was so creepy the way he was staged. I was kind of upset that it was in a TV spot. Um, I was like, "God damn, why'd you guys put that one in?" But I mean, because it would have been a fun first see in the theater. But no, I thought that scene was actually really good. So no, I would have to say that was probably my favorite too. But I mean, I loved all the scenes for different reasons. And I know that sounds so weird, but even like Ava, like right when in the beginning, right when it opens on her, like you like her. I did anyways. I even her like sometimes for actresses doing that with clothes, it can be a little bit like cheesy and I don't know. I bought into it. I don't know. I bought into this movie a lot, and I don't know if it's gonna change. I think it's gonna stay the same. I saw it, 3 other times from the first one, and I feel like it's not my opinion is not changing. I feel like other people's opinion will change over time.
I think that people so what happened with me was after the first viewing, I had some deep issues. And I mean,
Mhm.
again, there's still a part of me that is very mixed about this movie, but I've relaxed into not being so frustrated with those issues, if that makes sense. So I'm going with it right now. But
I had deep issues too, the
yeah,
same maybe it's the fact that I didn't get time to, like, marinate on them.
right.
I literally had 20 minutes until the next showing. So I don't know if that like gave me no opportunity to like really pick on it because then I was already watching the movie, already knew what happened and it was like "Oh, I'm watching a different movie now. Like I like this. Oh my god, look at that's they're shooting eyes and it all changed for me on that viewing. Sorry, go ahead.
So what are your thoughts on Stevie overall?
Stevie, I like her. I liked her. I thought the actress did a good job. I liked her. I would have liked more of her. I liked how she, and this could have been on purpose, maybe not on purpose, was leaning into a little bit of the Rebecca Gayheart craziness at first, but I wish I got more of that. So that's where I go with I don't think she killed anybody at
Yeah.
all. I think she was then wanting to kill Danica and Ava, and that's what Ray means. Like, why didn't you call me? Like, I could have took care of this, yada yada. I like her. I liked her.
Can I say something controversial on a Scream podcast?
Yeah.
I think she gives a better performance before the reveal, and after the reveal than Mikey Madison did in Scream 5.
Yeah. No, and I agree. Great.
The part of her performance that most touched me was actually at the beginning, whenever they first meet her and they see her loading the stuff into the car. She's part of the catering. Like, her acting in that sequence really, I felt very, it was very three-dimensional, and I did like her camp. I think that she gives a better performance in the finale as the killer than Mikey Madison did in Scream 5. So, and Mikey Madison just won the Oscar. So, Sarah Pigeon, good things are coming to you.
Yeah. No, and I do too. Mikey had a little bit of a cheesy dialogue too. Oh yes.
Go ahead.
Teddy.
What?
Teddy.
Petty?
Teddy.
Oh, Teddy. Yeah, Teddy.
Teddy.
What's up with Teddy?
Feeling like a little bit of like, I don't want to say this wrong, but a bi-gay vibe from him. Did you? I kept getting like is Milo and Teddy kind of?
Did you see
open?
after they leave Ray's bar, the two girls, Danica and Ava, kind of like say, like, they kind of hold hands, like, see you later, and the two boys do it too, and I'm just like, interesting. Yeah. Can I stand in between them? That's how I felt.
Well, he was calling him daddy at first at the party, like when the movie opens, and then he was like trying to do that kiss thing to get the joint. No, I wanted to ask you that. I was like, did you pick up on that, or was it just me?
I think Jennifer Keaton Robinson was trying to make everybody gay and bi. That's what
No, I don't know that.
Well, because like she said, Danica's like, oh yeah, the podcaster's hot. I'm like, really? We're all like, just crossing these barriers. Okay, interesting. But yeah. So, Joey, this has been a wonderful discussion. Thank you for coming, and thank you for sharing your insights. I'm glad that you have found a lot in this movie to love, considering the hype that you built into social media for this movie over the past couple of months. So I'm really happy that you had a great time with it.
Yeah, I am too, and I appreciate that. I think, like I said, I think more people are going to have more fun with this as time goes on. It's a fun movie. It puts you in a different element and a different feel. You feel summer, you feel like ready to go, you feel cool, you feel, I don't know, it's a fun movie.
It's giving summer, as my friend Danica would say.
It's vibing.
So, Joey, where can they find you and The Vault online?
Well, I'm on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. It's the Scream Vault. I mean, find me if you want, find me if you don't. Either way, we try to have a good time. I don't know. I just like posting pictures. I like editing things and making new things and editing videos and just talking about the movies, living in it.
We love it. So, Joey, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Ryan.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to this segment of Scream with Ryan C. Showers. I'm your host, Ryan C. Showers. Thank you for joining me. I'm here with my husband. His name is Tom. Hey, Tom.
Hey, Ryan. How are you, sir?
I know, this chick has got to go. I'm sorry. So this is TJ. He is so talented and gracious and nice enough to do the graphic design for Scream with Ryan C. Showers. He redesigned the logo. He does the episode graphics every week. Everybody, please give him a round of applause. TJ, we love you. Thank you for all you do for the pod.
Thanks so much. I'm happy to be here. And, it's nice in this world where there's so much uncertainty to find your place in the pecking order and the hierarchy of Ryan C. Showers when you're like the 9th person invited on to talk about I Know You Did Last Summer. And that's when I'm like, okay, he really values my opinion when I'm almost number 10 to talk about this thing. So shout out to all the folks that have already been in here talking about this movie. I'm going to try and say something fresh and original.
Well, and he's not going to agree with me, so that's what's fun. No. So I have to give TJ some super props because TJ hails from the Box Office Buds podcast. It's a really fun podcast that really describes every week they go through and predict what the box office will be of new movies, and they review movies that come out and kind of do this thing where they do like the over-under predictions. So if like there's like an average prediction of something, the crew will go on and say whether they think it'll be more or less than that, which is very fun. So go follow the Box Office Buds. And on the review of I Know What You Did Last Summer for the Box Office Buds, TJ was a part of that this past week, and he called me, little old me, who's afraid of little old me, he called me the podfather of the Scream Mafia, and that kind of took my breath away. So thank you so much for that designation.
I believe it was mafioso, but yes, I think you have done a great job of establishing yourself as a leader in the space of Scream fandom, and I think it was an apt title, and especially when we're talking about these franchises that are so directly linked to Scream. It was my pleasure to give you a direct shout out.
So I'm very interested to talk to you about this because you put up, I mean, like, first of all, I knew like this was your most anticipated movie of the year. And frankly, it was mine. I mean, I am a huge, I Know What You Did Last Summer. And the original for me is a 10 out of 10, one of my favorite movies of all time. And this movie was also highly anticipated by you. You posted 2 reviews of seeing it the first time and the second time, and you have been very enthusiastic. You said it was a 5 out of 5 movie for you. So please, TJ, explain to me what your thoughts are on I Know What You Did Last Summer, the requel.
Here we go. Oh, first of all, like, objectively, I don't think, in just basic like filmmaking terms, it was not a 5 out of 5 masterpiece. That is obviously a bit hyperbolic. It's a bit, in the spirit of celebrating slashers in the current moment, especially in a movie like this was so divisive. The 5 out of 5 rating is reserved for the absolute classics. But in my mind, if a slasher comes out this day and age, which they rarely do, and it does a good job in the current climate, it gets an extra star, at least from me, for just for helping keep the genre alive. And what I was most impressed about by this movie was, I thought personally that they chose a tone and they aimed for it and they didn't really falter.
Because you said this in your Instagram review, and I've been dying for you to hear it in your own words, like about the tone. What do you think that the tone of I Know What You Did Last Summer is that Jennifer Caitlin Robinson hastened so expertly, in your opinion? Like, how would you describe the tone?
I just think she wanted to make a fun, light movie, more in the spirit of I Still Know What You Did Last Summer, less in the spirit of the original. I mean, if you go back and watch, which everyone listening to this podcast has seen multiple times, but the original I Know You Did Last Summer is a pretty dour, serious,
My people.
I know how you like your sappy, upset women.
Yeah.
And that's what it is. And it's a great movie. And it's stylistically, acting, there's so many great elements, the script, but it is what it is. It is not the most fun movie in the world. And I mean, could you count on one hand the time that there's actually intention for like a comic relief or a joke? Like maybe, but you really like struggle to even think of a couple times where they intentionally like, let's put a joke here. It is serious as a damn heart attack. And that's cool. But that's what they were going for, right? So you watch that and you're like, oh, they wanted to make a really serious movie. This is not Scream, where even though it's Kevin Williamson and it has a lot of the same DNA. This is not the comic relief characters coming in, providing some laughter, yada, yada. So when I was watching it, I didn't know exactly what to expect. I only watched the very first like teaser trailer once. Mm-hmm. And then never watched any of the marketing material after that. Because I'd seen enough. I thought it looked pretty cool. Obviously, I was in the bag anyways, and I just didn't want to have anything else spoiled for me. So I didn't exactly know what to expect tonally when I went into it. And, right out the gates, it's like they make this decision. And what's difficult about this process is like we're learning in real time why all these things happen in the movie, right? So tonally, if you're watching it for the first time and they jump right into this sequence where it's Ava, our lead, right? She's like getting home from college and she's like having this fun sequence of like trying on different dresses and it's very light and bubbly. And so you're sitting there going, okay, well, that's an interesting choice to like lead in right with like some kind of like poppy, bubbly scene. Come to find out, there was a different scene that they had to delete that basically was, I'm not going to speak to really knowing what it was, but to some degree it was characters like invoking the legend of the Hook, the fisherman, like in some sequence that probably was similar to the beach scene from the original where they're talking around the campfire, right? So at one point there was a very specific decision to be like, we're going to start this with like a heavier tone and then pivot, as the way a lot of slashers do, where you start with the heavy opening sequence and you pivot more to like the lightness of the fun times of the story. But anyways, you went right into the fun aspect of it, and I just thought it was going for a light, fun tone that I thought it was achieving well, and it stuck to its graces and it hit the mark. And I think it's pretty ridiculous, and I get if you are more of a purist, that's not going to work for you. But I'll just say this, because I know you're chomping at the bit. I can see you're salivating. The moment where they're sitting with Freddie Prinze Jr. in his bar, the whole crew is there, and they're like talking about what to do next. And the moment when Danica is like, I have an idea, and the music like swells to support the joke that's coming. And she's like, we should talk to LaFleur or whatever, right? That's a fucking ridiculous moment. And for the film to not only like have that in the script, but for the score to support that moment of this psych out of like what she's saying, again, to me, it's like, this is our tone. Like it or not, this is our tone. You're either with us or you're not. And so I was with them, so I enjoyed it.
Okay, so I feel like Madeline Klein has not gotten a fair deal from Scream with Ryan C. Showers because TJ hyped her up in the process of waiting for the movie and the anticipation, because he would be like, hey, Ryan, will you, or he'll say, hey, RC Showerhead, will you be mad if, and notice the term, he says, will you be mad, as opposed to would you care? He says, will you be mad if I use Madeline Klein instead of Jennifer Love Hewitt on the graphic? And this happened twice. And I was like, well, yes, I would be mad. So I've been just teasing. So there was already a built-in thing like, okay, what's this girl all about? And then that moment, I've been blocking that moment out because it is so ridiculous. But I don't know if I completely agree that the rest of the movie has that same tone. I think she has that tone often. Like, she has like a beat that she hits over and over, and that's a perfect example of it. The other example of it is the beach. I'm sorry, but I can't with her washing up on the beach. I can't. However, I'm going to say the first viewing was really rough for me, in terms of just like being like, ooh, wow, recognizing the flaws, doing my Ryan C. Showers thing, which TJ would just call being negative, which I disagree. It's called film analysis. You should look it up. So
Toxic negativity. Yeah, I got you.
I saw it again. I saw it a second time, and I definitely relaxed more into the tone and just into the movie itself. And like, to be honest, I don't really know where I stand right now. I'm a big shrug, but I'm moving in the positive direction where, there was a lot that I liked about it the first time. I think the first half is great. The second half is where my issues are. But I am relaxing into whatever this new movie is, and I think that over time I'm going to really, really like it in terms of like, the whole how I view it in terms of the other films. I do think that you're right, though. I think that the second half especially takes on the tone of I Still Know. So, any thoughts?
Yeah, I don't know, man. I rewatched the first half today. Don't ask me how or why. And I think tonally it's pretty silly out the gates. And not to, no, you know what? I am going to bash Scream 4 in this conversation. The thing that I think tonally works more about this than other things is, to me, it's like Scream 4 has really great stuff in it. And obviously there's always comedy in the Scream movies, but there are a few times in that movie where it dips to a tonal place that feels so foreign to me, that feels like it totally is not right for the movie. Robbie's saying I'm gay right before he gets killed, the Bruce Willis line, we've gone over this, we all know. But to me, again, that's like they were trying to have their cake and eat it too, where they have this like super serious, dark, like reflexive Sydney and my past and my trauma, my cousin. And then in the same movie, they have this shit that just feels totally incongruous to the tone of the movie. So again, this movie is not for everybody, but I appreciated the fact that, yes, they might have some victim saying something ridiculous right before they get killed, like when the guy's like, check my crypto wallet or something to the killer, or like, what the fuck, bro? It's like stupid, obviously. But to me, it's like the whole thing is like pretty stupid and silly. I was just along for the ride. Every character, I mean, when the podcaster gets there, that podcaster is like basically a cartoon.
Yeah,
but
she is.
But even then, like that scene where she's in the back seat of the car and she leans up and she says that stuff, like there's versions of that type of scene where I think it's like cringy and doesn't work, but I think it's funny. I think the writing is funny. I think the performances and directing are funny, and I'm like amused by all the stuff that I think in less deft hands I might find annoying and to Gen Z. Because even I listened to the pod today and you were saying like, oh, this character Danica is everything I don't like about Gen Z characters. And I'm like, yeah, well, she's ditzy, but it's not like she's like ultra woke or something like that, or trying to be like super proper in that way. So that's that's something. She's not on her phone the whole time or some shit like that.
So I'm gonna just push back at you just a little bit here.
No way.
About this.
No way. I don't believe it. We need some conflict on this pod. Push back, baby. Let's go.
I'm going to back up into you. So
okie dokie. Parents, put your kids away.
So Danica, like it's more so about the caricature and almost like the way that they idolize her in the caricature of Gen Z culture. That kind of bothers me. And I wouldn't be so hard on her if she would have died on the boat, because they went there. Had she not washed up on the beach, my tone would be much less. I would be neutered when it comes to Danica. I would think whatever, she died, I'll never have to deal with her again. All right, I have two more points I want to hit. Then go to you for anything else you want to say. You said something funny today in our group chat with Josh, the straight bros with Ryan C. Showers. You said something about like to the effect of like, well, of course, the gays don't like it because there's a hot girl that is neither gloomy nor sassy, aka TJ thinks that I only enjoy stories about women who are either gloomy or sassy. And I was kind of offended whenever he first said this, but then I started going through and you can really break down literally, I mean, like, Sydney's the gloomy girl, Gail is the sassy girl. And if you go through all of my favorite things, it can really, it's usually a female character who falls into one of these two things. And it's just interesting. I have the gloomy girls, I have my gloomy girls, and I have my sassy girls, which is fun. So that's funny.
Because I just don't want the folks out there to think I'm painting with a broad brush when I say the gays. We have a very open, fun discussion about sexuality between me, Ryan, and Josh. So that was obviously a shot specifically at Ryan's taste in characters. And I don't mean to paint a broad brush and think that all gays have preferences for their characters. But Ryan certainly, in my experience with him, tends to like women characters who are either sassy or gloomy.
It's true. So I will say this. Your explanation of Freddie Prinze Jr. and of Ray and his motive and your defense of it on the Box Office Buds today really did inspire me. It made me, I was actually impressed. I was like, ooh, TJ's convincing me here. Like, because I do think that Ray was undercut. I think that they needed to have, a good 2 more minutes of him monologuing and going back and forth with Julie in a Roman Sydney kind of a way for it to have been like, to have felt like, yes, we juiced this for all it was worth because it's so short. And even his monologue is very condensed. But I will say, you convinced me. I sat up and I was like, okay, TJ has a point. So feel free to share any thoughts on the legacy, how they were used, and the twist.
I think that in a world where slasher motives can be very difficult to make interesting or compelling, see Scream 6, that Freddie Prinze's was actually interesting and layered and complex. And of course, I agree. Almost every single thing in this movie could have been done better. Like, I'm not suggesting this is a 5-star masterpiece, but I think overwhelmingly, again, the tone it was going for and the choices it makes, I support. And I think a lot of it works. Is there a version of that final confrontation with Ray where we have a better understanding of his motive? Yes. But I also think there is, and I really got this the second time, there is a really, thorough and conscious path to get there, to seed in what has happened to Southport in terms of this new developer coming in and buying Southport and dumping all this money in it. I mean, look at all the look at the houses our characters lived in the first one, Julie and Helen, and now look at the like palaces these folks live in the new one. So it's like, I'm sure it also had to do with where they were shooting, but it was a really smart way where it was a lot of show don't tell, which I also give it a lot of credit for. Like, these points were brought up. There's like the montage of the podcast where we get a little bit of this. But I like that it asks you to lean in and like try and understand visually when they show this place and they get to Ray's, and Ray's is still the Barnacle hole in the wall bar. But every other location is like opulent, beautiful, like all these doors that are like, motion activated, which is a kind of a weird recurring thing. But I think that storyline is really cool. And one thing I noticed in the second time, which I thought was so cool too, but I haven't heard it mentioned anywhere, is that in the closing montage, there's a moment where they show that a new developer is coming in to buy the area. It's like real quick. But there's a sign.
Yeah.
There's a sign there. It's just like some like fill in the blank, like Russell's Realty is coming in to repurchase this land to do. So you get the sense of like, oh, this shit's just going to happen again. Yeah. Like someone now is going to come in and they're going to cover up these murders. And it's just like the rich always win. The money is always the underlying issue that drives everything. Follow the money. And that all these people's stories and pain and trauma and stuff ultimately is going to be covered up by someone trying to make a buck. And so, again, that was not, there wasn't a big scene where the mayor met with a real estate agent and the guy was like, hey, how about I come in and let's, it was subtle, but it asks you to like follow the clue trail to get there. And if you follow it, I do think there is a pretty consistent through line for why Ray is upset that his town was taken over by this developer. Everything was changed. He's doing his best. I mean, even to think about like he's doing the party at Danica's house for the bar, and they're driving up in this like shitty station wagon, loading in the drinks in the back. He's got a pickup truck and they're driving to go to this insane, beautiful, ridiculous party. And so like, it's just like, again, that's like a show don't tell. You see the differences between the way Ray does his business and how they handle things versus the lives that this new generation of Southport people has brought, and how he has to acclimate to try and stay afloat in it by doing business with these people. And can you imagine all the interactions he's had dealing with these rich people that I'm sure just over and over again, having these folks move into his town and buy it up, and all of a sudden now he's like stocking their bar at their party. Like, can you imagine all the times that probably led to some animosity communication between everybody? So again, the whole idea that they covered up the murders in order for this place to be a tourist destination, so it's like none of their past even really happened. I just think in the world of slasher motives that can be silly and not so convincing, I thought the one they had for Ray was actually pretty compelling.
I agree. I mean, to be honest, again, you just sold me right here. I agree with all of this. Like, I didn't notice that detail at the end. I think that the details are all there. It is a lot of show don't tell. I just wish it was just a bit more direct, just to bring the point home for people.
Sure.
So it's not so ambiguous. And I do think that it would have been nice to have juiced a little bit more out of him and Julie and kind of make more sense of that. And I know that we're spoiled because Guy Busick and James Vanderbilt did a really nice job with Gale and Dewey in Scream 5, given their small roles. But, you know, that's still something that bothers me. But any final thoughts here about I Know What You Did Last Summer that you want to share?
You know, I feel fortunate when we get sequels to the stuff that we love. And, you know, lots of people are fans of things that when they come and go in their moment, they don't come back. And so the fact that we're specific fans of this thing called slasher movies that have this long tail that brings in new generations, you know, you just have to understand that decisions are going to be made so that these franchises and these movies and these characters and these stories and these icons can live on. So there's going to be stuff that you don't quite agree with that doesn't quite feel like the original, because they're trying to make an effort to have this stuff live forever. And ultimately, they're in it for the money too. Let's not like make this like too altruistic, but it allows fans like us to have new texts. And that's what I love too, man, about this. Like it was like when I watched Scream 5 and 6, you know, it's fun to be watching something. And you alluded to this to some degree in, I think, your earliest instant reaction, which I thought was quite nice, which was basically the idea that, like, regardless of how you feel about it, while you're watching the I Know What You Did Last Summer, you're like, the I Know What You Did Last Summer sequel, you're like, oh, I'm going to be watching and talking about this movie and analyze this movie for the rest of my life. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's a cool thing. It's a cool thing that,
is.
like, regardless of how you feel about it, you're like, we're gonna make jokes about this. We're gonna have reference points to this thing. It's gonna be like a new text in our vocabulary of this genre. And I just think that's super fun. And so, like, that's the way I think I give a litlittle more grace to 5 and 6 too, because it's just like, well, it's cool that we got sequels, man, and it's fun to debate them and talk about them, and there's cool stuff, there's stuff that doesn't work, but ultimately we're still getting that stuff that we love in some shape or another. And I'm glad we have I Know What You Did Last Summer to add to that collection. And I had a really good time, and I hope that it makes enough money to justify the Brandy sequel, because I think that would even have more of a mass appeal at this point. And I think that if this movie in some shape or another has a bit of a cast a shadow even in its small margins of profit, I think that they might make the decision to try and do it again. So that's what I'm hoping for, fingers crossed.
Me too. I'm hoping for it as well. I mean, you know, again, each day that goes on, I'm relaxing more into I Know What You Did Last Summer, and I am enjoying it. And I've realized my mood about this movie shifts based on who I'm talking to about it, because there are so many divisive opinions about this. No one has been predictable about this movie in terms of their reaction, in my opinion. And whenever I talk to someone like you, I get happier about the movie. But when I talk to somebody else, I get more critical, or, you know, so it's a very weird movie. I think it does benefit from a female perspective. So yeah.
Shout out to Amar. I listened to Amar, and I was vibing with Amar's comments.
Amar, he had the audacity to say, well, Ryan, why don't you like Madeline Klein?
I know, and I'm sitting there like doing cartwheels, be like, get him, Amar, get him. Come on.
It's very complicated. Oh my God. So anyways, TJ, thank you so much. Where can they find you online?
Primarily on Instagram, Jones Hip Hop, all one word. And then I am also a contributor to the Box Office Buds, boxoffice.buds on Instagram. Ryan is gracious enough to always post our stuff. So if you follow his stories, you'll see our stuff. He'll be on our show again. We'll be on his show again. And I just want to finish up by again giving a shout out to the third point of this trio, Josh Carr, who is going through some things right now. And we're thinking of you, Josh. And we hope you and your family are doing well.
Yeah. I am lucky enough to be the bottom in a thruple with two tops. So that's great.
Okay. I try to get it serious and emotional, and this dude takes it there. See, if you were neutered, that never would have happened.
I know. Oh, I just wanted to like I wanted to the Madeline Clyde voice. I wanted to the baby, the baby girl, like flamboyant, like yeah.
I was just all right. Last thing, real quick. I was just watching it like right before we got on, and I think her delivery is so funny when it's like it's an absolute nothing line when Milo shows the joint, and she's like, Milo, you know he can't say no. And like, it's just like dumb, but the pitch that she hits and the tone that she hits and the look on her face, I just think it's funny. I think it's comedic. I think she's good. I'm all about it.
What did you write this on Letterboxd?
I haven't yet, but I'm sure, oh God, I go back and forth on like how I want to represent my stars. I mean, it's at least a 4 in the spirit of promoting it and advocating for it and trying to get folks to check it out. Yeah, 4.
I gave it a 3.5 out of 5. So I'm comfortable with that. Anything less of that seems mean, and anything more than that seems like I'm dumb. So I'm happy with that. No
and
offense.
I think that over time, this is my theory. Everyone listen, I'm gonna get real close to the mic. My theory is over time, this movie is gonna make Ryan appreciate Scream 6 more. Because some of the staging and blocking and editing and vibe, he's gonna be like, wow, I really did like I Know What You Did Last Summer, but 6 had some pretty dope shit going on. That's my theory.
I don't know, because I've come to the conclusion that I prefer I Know What You Did Last Summer to Scream 6. Yeah.
What a hot take. Okay,
Yeah.
maybe that's where we should go out.
All right, thanks, TJ.
Thanks, buddy.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the next segment of Scream with Ryan C. Showers. I'm your host, Ryan C. Showers, and I'm sitting here with 2 of my favorite gal pals, Sarah Campbell. Hey, Sarah.
Hey, Ryan.
Welcome to season 5 of the pod. This is your first appearance so far in season 5, so welcome. Oh my gosh.
Thanks so much. I'm excited to be here. I think, the last time I was on, you hadn't officially started recording for season 5, but we were congratulating you on hitting it. So I'm happy to be here.
Yes, that episode we did, like, for the group Zoom for the Patreon, we did favorite kill of the franchise, which was a very cool Zoom, and that is going to premiere the first week of September. So that is what Sarah's alluding to. So I love Sarah so much because, like, she is like, how like with sometimes with parents, you'll hear a parent say, if they have 2 kids, there's an easy one and there's a hard one. Sarah is like, she's an easy friend. She's just like she's like my low maintenance bestie. Like I can go to Sarah and just like, no, like she's got me. She's taking care of it.
Thank you. That is a high compliment coming from you.
Well, thank you for all you do for the podcast.
Thanks.
And my other guest here tonight, you heard her on Tuesday talking about I Know What You Did Last Summer compared to Scream. So, and it's fun because we recorded this episode before everyone saw I Know What You Did Last Summer. So it was just a fun kind of like time capsule to be like talking about Scream and I Know What You Did Last Summer before, but then released after the new movie. So everybody, please welcome my good friend Jess. Hey, Jess.
Hey, Ryan, how you doing?
I'm well. I'm excited because like the point of this episode with you today was like Anthony was the fan of I Know What You Did Last Summer. You were the person who wasn't so hot I Know What You Did Last Summer. So I'm interested to see what your perspective is because on top of all of that, you're an expert with me in terms of like we've done a lot of exercises about the requel. So I'll be interested to see what you think of this movie.
Yeah, very excited to have this conversation. I've been looking online and I've seen like all over the spectrum. It's been kind of insane with people's takes on it.
And I have not been able to, I've really barely been able to predict anybody's reaction to this movie. It's kind of insane. Every time I think someone's going to be positive, they're negative. Every time I think they're going to be negative, they're positive. And everyone has a weird point of view, a very unique point of view that doesn't match anybody else's. So it's very cool. Anyway, so, all right, guys, let's kick it off. I want to hear what everyone thought. So let's start with Sarah. Where do you stand on the original I Know What You Did Last Summer? And what are your thoughts on the new movie?
Like the original, I do. It never was, like my franchise. I never was super into it the way I'm into, Scream or Halloween. But I never had an issue with them. They just weren't front of mind. I think I gave the original like a 7 out of 10. It's a good time. So I didn't have the same investment going into this like requel, reboot, whatever we want to call it, sequel, as a lot of people did. That being said, I found myself like reacting really strongly to it. So I guess I did have more investment than I thought I did. I am part of the group that doesn't like this.
Yeah. And
yeah,
it's so funny to me because like I just remember like you were back like whenever I used to do Zach Cherry's live streams. I remember like this big night we had a big conversation about I Know What You Did Last Summer. And I remember you being kind of soft on it. I remember you saying like you're like a 7 out of 10, right? Would that be accurate?
Yeah, like 7 out of 10, and then I still know is like a 6 out of 10. It's, again, nothing offensive. I think it's fun, just not my fave.
Mm-hmm. So what do you give this new movie out of 10?
Like a 3.5, 4. Like I had bigger issues with it than I thought I would, coming from a place of not being invested.
Yeah. Well, so what would you say was your biggest issue in terms of the movie?
The main thing is I was really frustrated because this could have been really good. Like, it could have been an awesome installment. It could have been, like, the Halloween 2018 of the franchise. But it was a bad script. and they made like weird choices. Like you thought it was gonna go in a direction and it just completely went the other way, and it's like what is going on? So yeah, I had huge problems with the writing, and it was also basically like a ripoff of Scream 5, which is a movie that I also hate. It completely it's fresh teens that are underdeveloped with no personalities or backstories, returning characters that were relegated to glorified cameos. There was like a smattering of Easter eggs, visions of dead people, and then like a terrible plot decision with a legacy that now affects how I view the previous installments. Like it's just, it was like a cut and paste of Scream 5, but the teens were more annoying.
The teens were more annoying, and they retroactively really harmed the legacy in a irreparable way, you know.
Yeah.
So, and I think you can watch Scream 1, 2, and 3, and 1, 2, 3, and 4 if you didn't like Scream 5. There's nothing in Scream 5 that like I think destroys 1, 2, 3, and 4, but with this, it took the risk of, you know, the fact that, you know, we could look at Ray differently back from the very first scene of him hitting Ben Willis, right?
Yeah, I think to pull off a twist like this, it has to be planned from the beginning. Because now we're looking back and we're trying to read into it a lot, being like, well, remember when he bought that gun? Like maybe he was always off the rails, maybe he was bad. But then that just like ruins the character further because you started off thinking he was like a hero. Like I think there's a way to plan a twist, but that's the key word is plan. They clearly just were going with whatever.
Okay. I think I have a good grasp of like where for a starting point for you. So now, my requel lady, Jess, what are your thoughts?
Let's see. It's a lot to say
Let's
because I
see.
agree with a lot of what's being said, but at the same time, I guess because obviously if they listen to the last pod, I'm not the biggest fan. I don't think they're bad movies. I definitely agree with like a 6 or a 7 on the first one because I do think the Helen Shivers of it all is mandatory watching. It's probably there's something about that scene that feels it's giving Casey Becker, but if that scene was about hope, like completely, it's just so unique, just like unforgettable, like that she almost survives.
Yeah.
So to that end, I'm like, yeah, it's like mandatory viewing. I still know less so, right? Like I don't think it's a horrible movie. I think it's serviceable and it's fine. I just don't enjoy it as much as I actually do this movie to some degree. And I don't know if it's delirium, Ryan. You're the one who told me to go watch it. And so I had to sit there and watch it. And I think I hit delirium because I was struggling so hard to get through that setup. Because you're right, the writing is really, really bad. Because I am unaware, like, is there a state in which if you were the pedestrian that caused the accident, that you would be held responsible in that way? Like that's not reality.
Doesn't
And that
sound like
really,
North Carolina to me. I'm sorry.
no. Like the driver always has responsibility and he had ample time to react to them being in the road. So the whole setup of it all was really ridiculous and that was really hurting the film for me. And I think I only started settling in with the movie again because I'm just kidding. I keep giving this like imagery of like Ryan Showers shackles keeping me in the seat. But at any rate, I think I started getting along with the movie more when they actually did the scene that I was actually talking about that I wanted between Julie and Helen, between Ava and Danica, right? Where you actually get to see a little bit of who she really is and that character starts becoming a little grounded. For me, it really feels like this movie was smashing in 2 movies together, right? I feel like there's a universe in which this would have been some sort of trauma dissertation on how gender and societal expectation impacts, outcome when 2 people who experience the same trauma, that their outcomes are radically different as life goes on, right? Because I think that's what they were trying to say between Ray and Julie, but like fell on their face massively. And then there's a world where this movie was like a la, Sugar and Spice, Jawbreaker, those types of movies where it's like very like, camp and maybe a little bit parody, maybe a little bit satirical and not necessarily knowing that that's not what these movies were, These movies were taking themselves very seriously, even if you found it, like, again, to someone like me who's not a big fan to the point of ridiculousness, but like they were taking themselves seriously. So it's taking this whole franchise and making something else of it that not necessarily that I feel like a lot of people weren't signing up to, actually see.
And that's interesting, the way that that phrase, that there were a lot of people who weren't signing up to see what this change was. this, and I want to be clear, this isn't just a simply the change of cast. This is a change of direction, I think, about the franchise. And I think that you're absolutely right about like what they were trying to do in terms of Ray and Julie. But again, I think you needed to beef up their screen time and their scenes together and their finale together for a big payoff. Like, I actually think my favorite scene in the movie, besides, of course, the two cameos from the previous cast members, right? Besides those two scenes, I think my favorite scene is the Ray and Julie midpoint where they have that confrontation, because in my opinion, I don't think that Julie comes off as super 1000% likable in that scene. I think that she's kind of prickly, and so it kind of gives you the sense of like, ooh, maybe we're on Ray's side here. I think you can leave that scene seeing both interpretations, like pro Ray, pro Julie. And I think that like that was a good starting point to get to a point where he is the killer, she is the hero at the end. I think that there was just stuff that was missing to really make that successful, including especially a more prolonged finale. So Sarah Campbell, what say you?
Yeah, everything did feel very rushed, but at the same time, I was like, this isn't over yet. Like, it was like a weird paced movie, and they went from point A to point B like really quickly. Like, instead of holding on things and lingering things and letting things like breathe and extending out a scene and like making you interested in something, it was like, and this is happening and we're killing them and we're moving on and we're going to here. And I was just like, it was a lot going on. Also, I could never exactly tell where they were. Like, all of their houses like looked the same. I'm like, are we at Danica's house? Are we at Teddy's house? Has time passed? Has time not passed? Like, it was all very frantic. Like, it was a strange editing choice.
Yeah.
And that kind of took me out of it too.
The editing is rough, man. Like, I think that you actually, this is something I haven't mentioned yet, is like, yes, you're right. Like, when they go in the garage at the end, I was like, oh, not the end. When they go in the garage at the beginning after the accident, I was like, where are we? I think, just to clear, are we at Teddy's house in that scene? Are we at Madeline Klein's? I think we're at Teddy's, because isn't that where he dies? None of us know.
Don't look at me, Ryan. I have no idea.
No, he dies.
It took Ava saying.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Sarah.
No, it's. Oh God, sorry.
No, I was just saying it. I don't know if it was his house. I just know that where he died was his house, but it looked different than the house at the beginning. Like, it. Yeah, I don't know where they were.
Yeah. Jess?
No, I was going to say it took Ava, like, thank God Ava was there to clarify that they were not at the police station or whatever, because I was not keeping up, and I was like, my eyes were rolling all the way back, and I'm like, I must have missed something. But that's truly how this movie feels, just going from, I think that this, like I said, two movies slapped together, and it reflects really badly in the editing. It's really choppy.
Well, so what do we think of, so let's just go there, since, we are 90s people. And in terms of Julie James, were you guys happy with Jennifer Love Hewitt, her performance, her appearance, how they used her? Sarah, what are your thoughts?
I think for the most part, I was. Initially coming out of it, I was like, I don't know if I liked that Julie. But then I thought back to the first two, and I'm like, she really is so much stronger. Because if you think about her in the first one, it's just screaming. It is screaming and wallowing and crying and more screaming and not taking any action until she decides to go to Anne Heche's place.
Yes.
That was like her main moment, really, because even in the finale, she's just like screaming in the boat, like Ray is doing everything. So in this one, I did end up liking her a little more. Like, she seems like she's dealing with her trauma. She's stronger. She was the one giving the kids the advice, get him before he gets you. Yeah, I liked her.
I think that there is something interesting about this Julie compared to Sidney Prescott, per se, because we never really get to see Sidney get to give Sam that advice that Julie gets to give, like, in terms of the bump, ba-dump, ba-dump. So I like that aspect of Julie. She is kind of down to business, and not that Sidney wasn't. It's just that Sam never allowed Sidney in Scream 5 to give her that advice. So Jess, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, when it comes to Julie, because I did recently, I think I told you, right? I rewatched I Still Know just to get a sense of the trajectory and what's going on here. And I think it is a good choice to, make her a psychologist. I was watching Zach Cherry's stream, I believe, last night, and he was like how she was allegedly supposed to be in like law school. And I'm like, oh, so this is perfect. She could have just been a forensic psychologist, and this could have been interesting, and she could have actually like maybe found out that, had a good pathway of detective work to figure out it was Ray. But, alas, that didn't happen. As far as how she was characterized in her scenes, the scenes where there's a lot of trauma speak were really weak to me. And I've seen other people say the same thing. It's what we've heard time and time again. It's like, the cliff notes and not even done well. I think her lecture was pretty, like I said, once they go with the mysterious ways and trauma's gonna get you, and it's just like it's just not speaking about things in an accurate way, and it's not that hard to find out, and especially when you're directly referencing the book that influenced a lot of our understanding in trauma in the movie itself and not adding that in. But outside of that, I thought in the moments with Ava, like let's say when she put her hand to steady her leg, I thought that was really strong because without words, she's conveying that she understands her exactly how she feels because she's been in that seat before. Right. And I thought that was really cool. Overall, how she felt to me, she feels different from Sydney because Sydney has this grace and this peace to her where Julie feels a little frantic, but it's like inside, you could still tell that this bitch is kind of not okay, especially since to her, she's walking away when Ava's calling for her because she thinks it's in her head. Yeah. So even though she's done the work, it's the movie's implying to us that she still has symptoms and that she's still like, or at least right now, especially with how hypervigilant she is around her house when Freddie comes to visit her that first time. I like that portrayal because I think that's a little bit more, as bare bones as it is, it's a little bit more realistic. No, she's not, the same, freaking out like she was before, but she's gotten, to a better place. And I have no problems with her wanting to take the fight to the killer because that makes sense to me after rewatching I Still Know. Because in that movie, she is like fighting with herself to want to take the fight to the killer. Multiple times she's like, I want to, and then like doesn't until the end. So I feel like that's something, that saved her life in that movie. So that makes sense to me. Why wait around? Just go get the guy. So I felt like that advice, even though it's a little not the best for safety reasons, I believe that she would say that.
Yeah. Well, so Sarah, do you have anything you want to add here about Julie before we move on to Ray?
Yeah, I'll just say that because I kind of forgot about I Still Know when I was thinking about how she was, in the past. And I do think her jump between 1 and 2 was pretty significant too, because you ultimately have her at the end killing Ben Willis. Right? And she like took charge. So this does seem like a natural progression, going from obviously terrified for her life to being a little more sure of herself and, saving her own life and now taking the fight to the killer. So I think her progression makes sense. But I agree with Jessica. The trauma was like weird. But again, that's just down to bad writing. But I think like Julie as a character is pretty good.
So here's a question, because there's been a big tizzy about Jennifer Love Hewitt, and like she's basically said like this is the version of Julie she wanted to play. She held out for a long time, probably about money, that's my guess. And I think that the narrative choices were second, if anything. Do we think that like she was robbed, of anything because she didn't get the action, any real action moments, any real genre moments? On the one hand, you could look at it and say that part of Julie's healing and healing of the trauma is not having to go there, not having to do that thing again, and being healed in a sense. But on the other hand, I think a lot of fans would say we feel robbed that we didn't get a Jamie Lee Curtis moment. We didn't even get a Courtney Cox in Scream 6 moment of Julie. We didn't even get her being able to kill Ray. And that would have been a very personal moment for her that a lot of people just think was missing. So Sarah, what are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I think we probably could have cut 10 minutes out of the movie somewhere else, like maybe the unnecessary pastor sideline.
Yeah.
And given her like a little more, because she jumped to realizing it was Ray like immediately. She pulled up one flyer of the Ray's bar or whatever and was just like, my ex-husband is the killer. Like, we could have given her 5 more minutes of like figuring that out and like realizing the impact of what this means. Like, this man that you married is actually a killer. Like, we immediately just went, oh, he's the killer. And she's like on the road. Like, she's let like, that breathe a little. Yep. She's like, I knew it this whole time. He was a rat. He was always a rat. And then she goes after him. Like, no, give her some time to like figure that out. And again, the finale was like totally rushed. You could have given her more time. They could have talked it out. He just like monologued some like half-assed motive. Like, we could have had a little more back and forth with her there. Like, I get why the front was like, I wanted to call it teen heavy, but like, I get why the front end of the movie focused on the new cast. but they could have done a little more with her at the end.
You know, it would have been a really easy thing to do is like to set up her kind of thinking that it was Ray, for there to have been some illusion that he became violent in the marriage or aggressive or would throw stuff or maybe hit her, you know, or started, you know, increasingly becoming violent with her in the marriage. And that's part of the reason the marriage ended. That would have been because then, you know, as a victim of domestic abuse, then she could have been like, oh my God, of course it's Ray because he has shown this. He's shown this behavior. Sarah, any final thoughts before I go to Jess?
Yeah, or at least even if it wasn't like abusive, like have him obsessing over the fact that, you know, he's been erased, because that seemed like a crazy jump, because at the end of like 1 and 2, it just seemed like Ray wanted a quiet, peaceful life just with Julie away from all of this. So then to have him be like have such a switch at the end being like, you wanted to pretend like this never happened, it's like, well, that's what you wanted, wasn't it? So even if we had some like, yeah, backstory about how he was obsessed with this, he was angry at the town, or like something that justified this like flip at the end, would have been nice.
Yeah. All right, Jess, I know you're over there with your Rocky gloves ready, so hit me with it.
Okay, when it comes to Ray, when I was watching I Still Know, I was paying attention because the movie kind of opens up with them on the rocks. And the reasoning, because it's completely, even that movie's weak with the conflict, because you have to infer. And what I infer from it is that Ray doesn't want to be around Julie and around her cohorts because it makes him feel, you know, uncomfortable, insecure, stuff like that. And Julie doesn't want to be in Southport because she's terrified and she's fucking scared and traumatized. And so, you know, obviously like go somewhere else, but like they don't do that, obviously. And then Ray, every time she refuses Southport, he interprets it as she's refusing him, like a rejection of him because he's not, quote, good enough in his mind. And that's why she repeats to him again and again, it's not you, right? It's literally the place. Why don't you understand this? Like, you know? And to me, when it comes to like Ray's, like, let's say his motive and stuff, and well, and in of itself, like for me, how do I see this? I don't know if it needed to be DV. It could have simply just been because I could see a world where they went back to Southport and maybe within moving on, because obviously Ray wants to, you know, ignore and Julie wanted to confront. Like that's quite literally, and I Still Know one of her issues. She tells the priest, I want to talk about this, you know, but she can't, including to Ray. So I kind of felt like, you know, maybe that was really the rift in their marriage. Just like they're just not in sync. He can't support her in that way. You know, where does this recognition part come in? Maybe the way he copes is how he's treated around town. You know, maybe to some degree he's treated as a town hero or something. And that's how he kind of, you know, deals with his trauma, like engaging in that community. And then when they rip away that community, that could make sense to me that when you lose community, when you lose status and recognition, that suddenly those symptoms pop up, those things he's never dealt with before. And whereas Julie, she has, you know, and she already moved on with her life. So that's one way you can like rationalize this half-baked idea. But when it comes to like, let's say Julian being robbed, I would say that she is. And I think that fans should feel a type of way because this should be deeply personal, you know? And this is coming from someone who's not invested.
Sarah, any response?
No, I totally agree. I think it was a weird character choice for Ray. Like, honestly, I think it was weird choices made all around.
Yeah. Well, so, you know, in terms of Sarah, you alluded earlier about like this idea, like that perhaps this impacts the choice. Like, you know, if you, the other side of the coin is like, oh my gosh, look at us. We took a big swing that Scream would never do, you know, and like, in fairness to them, they did, you know, making him the killer. It would be like if Scream 5 would have made Gail Weathers the killer, you know, in terms of someone we've known since 30 years ago becoming the killer.
To do a twist like this, to have something so radically different about an established character, you need to make it make sense. Like, I think there's always a way to do it. Would I like it? That's a different story. But props are due. If you like pulled it off and it made sense, like I would be fine with it. I just think it was so underwritten. Like you drew some parallels to Scream already, but like when you think about Dewey and Gail's relationship, yeah, we hop right into 4, we see we're having problems. We hop right into 5, we see they're divorced. But throughout the movie, there's these like little nuggets of information that alludes to like what actually happened. And it's like, we're learning, we're putting things together. Clearly this has been planned out. Where in this, it's just pieces of information that don't connect. So even if they decided to try to give us a better motive. Like, it's not believable to me that it was Ray because they didn't paint that picture. They didn't sell it to me.
Yeah. Jess, thoughts?
Would I be okay with this? Because I know people who say that they should have made one of the trio a killer. That's fucking stupid.
I agree.
I don't think there's a world where that happens. Just because of how those characters are established. Do I believe that there was a will and a way with Ray? I do believe that. Because again, they've always been on opposite sides of the spectrum when it comes to coping. Right? And you can actually tell a good story with this sort of social commentary on the tendency for men to externalize pain and anger, and the tendency for women to internalize pain and anger. That would have been interesting. It seems like that's what they were going for, especially with that final line they should have written out about men just needing to go to therapy. Is like, I'm sorry, but did you not see your own movie? The girl was the one who made all this happen, essentially.
I didn't like that. I'm sorry. I didn't like the line because I think that, like, it wasn't true to the characters themselves. Like, I feel like Ava and Danica, Danica didn't even see Ray, reveal himself, so how would she even know other than whatever Ava told her, whereas Danica went head to head with Stevie on the boat. I mean, like, she's got hooked by her and they had a big fist fight and she was BFFs with her. If anything, you would have thought, like, so we've learned that the Danica surviving was a late addition to the film. It was filmed at the end of June 28th. Madeline Klein said that they filmed this shit. That is disgusting to me. It's July 22nd. We're recording this. That's less than a month ago. This shit was filmed and now we're watching it. Like, are you kidding me? And in my opinion, that made the movie so much worse. Like, honestly, I would be so much nicer to Danica had she died and not washed up on shore and coughed up water and said, hospital. Like, who says that is, like, not even for Gen Z. Like, I just feel like with Danica, my beef is like they were creating this caricature of Gen Z in the worst ways possible. I can't with Danica. Anyways, Jess, you defended Danica in your initial response to me. Where do you stand with her?
No, I think she's great. I know. No, I do. She's not like 100% infallible. Like, she does have lines that don't hit. And like I said before, like I know that girl. I've seen it in all aspects of my life, not just Gen Z, like especially working EMS, you spend 8 to 12 hours with someone's going to start telling you their life story, and suddenly that hyper girl, the girl who seems like a ditz, gets really quiet and pensive and starts talking about her life. And that scene between her and Ava reminded me of that, of all the weird times I've ended up alone with a girl and her telling me all her traumas, So she felt like a real person to me, because I've met those people.
Yeah.
And I liked her progression as a character because, she openly admits to you, she's putting on an act. Yeah. Whenever she's serious, she has a different demeanor about her that I liked. Now, the reason why I'm happy she survived, besides the fact that I like her as a character, was because Ava is such a shit character. They don't do anything with this girl. Like, look at the way she opens the movie. Like, you want to talk about mischaracterizing Gen Z? Like, she's talking to herself. No, she would have YouTube video make her voice. That would be her monologue that she's saying out loud, not whatever the fuck that was. That was like weird talking to yourself dialogue. And also, she's a bad final girl. This girl, she gets to steal the kill from Julie, but she does nothing. Yeah. Her life was allegedly never in danger. They were actually not targeting her by their own admission. And then at the end there, she doesn't even, she just gets stabbed and she's just waiting to be saved. She would have died had not, Jennifer Love Hewitt came. And then she didn't even get a good fight with Stevie. Like, what did this bitch do?
Literally had a knife in her back at the time that Julie came, to the bar. So, I mean, she was practically already 1 foot on the other side, if you think about it. So
at least Danica threw hands. I could get behind her.
She did. She tried. Like, I was actually surprised by how Danica, and maybe this was part of the reshot footage, I don't know, but like the way that Danica really took the fight to Stevie, I'll give her that. I've been so critical on Madeline Klein for the past week, so I mean, I'll give Danica that. But wow, so I like your thoughts on Ava, because to quote my good friend Taylor Swift, I forgot you existed, because like the others are so interesting. Like, the boys are so cute in different ways, and Danica is so Gen Z, and Stevie is my fave. So I mean, like, Ava, she's just kind of like an afterthought. Amar really likes her, but somebody else really liked her, but like I was just like, Anyways, Sarah, what are your thoughts here on Danica and Ava?
So I'll start with Ava because it's a little more I don't know. I think I'm a little kinder towards Ava. I feel like she was just like underwritten. Like, I know I keep saying underwritten, it's the buzzword tonight. But like at the beginning when she's getting ready and she's talking to herself, she's like in her old, I assume, childhood bedroom. We like pan up to a picture of what I assume is her deceased mother. Like, we could have built some character, but all of that was like for nothing. It was never brought up again. Why did we focus in on it? Like, we learned nothing about her backstory, but like we could tell she was like kind, like she was the one that wanted to do the right thing. Like, they just like didn't build her up enough. I didn't know enough about her to really like care. And Danica, oh god, I know girls like Danica, but she was like, I think she was like a caricature of a girl. Like, every time she said Fleur, her claircognizant empath, I wanted to scream. Like when they're all at the bar and they're having like a various like serious conversation and she's like, we should call Fleur. I'm like, I gotta go. Like, don't piss me off. Like, it was too over the top for me, to the point where I'm like, can she just leave? Like, can she just die? Like, we can be focusing on other people. Like, it was just too much. And I get like your points about like she was putting on a facade for people, but even like behind the scenes, like I don't know, I just really didn't enjoy her. And that was like, I know all characters are not meant to be enjoyed, but when I like think about the original four, like, yes, they did, arguably a worse crime than this group. And Barry, I think, was shittier than Teddy, but like there was more redeeming qualities about them, and like I actually did care when they died. Like, I really was rooting for them to get out of it. With this group, I was like, I don't care. Just like show me who the killer is. Honestly, I think out of all of the new cast, like Teddy was probably the most dimensional, and like I was a little sad to see him go. But I just think they missed the mark, and it's not just this film that's guilty of it. I think lately it's people are going for the visuals and the kills and the shocks, and we're losing like characters.
Yeah. Well, I agree with you about Teddy. I think he is one of the better drawn characters. And I think you hit on something really important. And like, this is something that I haven't even really thought about. I was on the Happy Horror Time podcast, recording with them last weekend, and it's going to be out this Monday. So, and they brought up to me about like the comparison between the original cast and this cast. And like, to that point, I hadn't even thought to consider, to compare, the core four of 97 to this cast, because there is no way you can possibly compare that masterclass of casting. Like, each of those roles is perfectly cast, and those characters are all deep enough that it's interesting and we care about them. Here, it's a whole other beast. So I think that you're absolutely right there, Sarah. And the flaw, whatever it is, I was like getting out my phone and wanting to block her. That's how much it was just like, it's just like, I think that you're hitting on something really important here, which is like, and for the record, Danica and Madeline Klein, very controversial. Like, you will find both Jess's opinion and mine and Sarah's opinion about Danica online. This is something that's like pervasive out there. So I'll be interested just to see how this conversation goes on for the next couple of years, just because like there are people who strongly just don't enjoy this character, her characterization, the flatness of which she is performed, and just what she kind of represents in a lot of ways. And then people who think that she's dynamic and interesting and funny and one of the highlights of the movie. So it's crazy to me that this one character can symbolize all of those things. Anyways, so I want to ask you guys about the accident and how that kind of leads to the horror and the rest of the film. So, Jess, what are your thoughts on the accident compared to that of the original?
I think it's absolute bullshit.
Yeah.
Like, thank God Teddy gets better as a character, because that's when I wanted to walk out. I was like, somebody take this man, how is it possible? Like, I think he's doing like a Ali reference or something, wanting to box a fucking car. Like, what the hell is going on? Like, it just felt unbelievable to me that friends would let a friend stand in the middle of a road on that, that bend,
right,
and let him play around like that. As far as like the accident goes, like we already talked about, the legality of it all is absolutely ridiculous. You can't buy into it. To me, the movie felt like it had no stakes. I literally felt like I was watching a parody, at that point, and not a very good one. So it was very frustrating. As far as like, I know people have been saying like, oh, this is a little bit lighter because like it kind of absolves them, right? Because as opposed to the original, where it is really, they dump a body in the original. That's really dark. But I also would argue that the original kind of absolves them too, because he's actually alive, right? So I don't feel like it's a I don't think it compares. I think it's probably, like I said, probably one of the worst setups I've ever seen in any horror movie. It shouldn't,
Wow.
like, how did it even get through the first draft? This is brain leakage, Tatum would say.
I kind of think that I think the studio wanted it to be a bit muted because I think they're afraid of younger audiences and younger people not seeing the gray, if that makes sense, because there's a lot of conversation in the culture about how Gen Z really does see black and white in terms of everything, and we see this all the time. And just like I know this is a really poor example, but just off the top of my head, like cancel culture, and like anytime somebody uses a wrong phrase or something, Gen Z will automatically write them off forever. And I think that the reason that it doesn't have any teeth is because of that. They were trying to, not challenge the audience morally. And part of the brilliance and the genius of the original is that deep guilt that Julie feels over that year and how it changes her and how it changes Helen. And Ray doesn't get to go to college. And, that's part of what makes the original work so well. Yeah. Sarah, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'll give my full thoughts in a second, but before I forget my thought, like what you just said about like Julie being like racked with guilt, I feel like it only affected Teddy, and I think that helped the character. Like Danica's engaged again, Ava's, just like hooking up with girls. Milo, hi Milo, thanks for being in the movie. Like what did you bring? He's just like living his life with this big political job. But like Teddy was like the affected one rather, which is why I think he was interesting. But going back to the crime, this truly was like the definition of just an accident. The only crime was not reporting it. Like in the first one, it's like until we get the reveal, we're like, they murdered a guy. Like they took his body to the water and actively murdered a guy. This, maybe reckless endangerment. I don't know the law. It was a kid in the street, but the driver was also careening around corners, speeding, had 2 business days to stop and see him. Like there's got to be a little bit of responsibility on the driver as well. Like it's an accident. The crime was not reporting it. So it was like, how much guilt did they want to show the kids having versus like, murdering someone and it being like an actual accident. But like right off the bat, that made me just like not believe in this. Like I think after like the accident happened, I looked at my friend in the theater and I was like, this kind of seems like a non-issue. You could probably just like call the police and be like, we were crossing the street and this guy went off the road. Like this is a terrible accident, but like you wouldn't get, your life taken away as if you were covered in alcohol and they thought you murdered someone. Like,
right.
I get to the argument about like the cancel culture and everything, but yeah, I just think, again, weird choices were made. There's 1,000 other options. Why did you almost copy the beginning of the first one?
I think that's interesting, and I think it's also just funny that we're 3 millennials here sitting here having this conversation about like, the right and wrong and like just how, and you're right though, it was purely an accident. And almost like, if I were up there, I would be like, I would think that they did nothing wrong. I would be like, dude, you were driving out of control. Jess, thoughts?
No, absolutely. If you're operating a vehicle, you are the one responsible for not hitting anything. The pedestrian is like rarely ever charged with anything because at the end of the day, you were the one operating the vehicle. You know what I mean? A pedestrian can't like hit themselves with a car, and you have to, be responsible and be on the lookout. So for me, it's just like I said, that's when I went into delirium because like I just could not believe this is what they wanted us to be invested in. And then on top of that, I think the way they did it weakens Stevie. I mean, first of all, they gave away the killers to this movie very early, like Stevie being the only one, out of the group, the you moment, like it was giving clue. Who else would this girl know that's underneath that? It has to be Ray. But on top of that, like it weakens Stevie because we never see her have this relationship. We don't know what it means to her. This guy, he's not even a character in the movie.
Yeah.
So it's unlike the first one where at least in the first one, the guilt drives them to learn more about this person, to it's a mystery within itself, even though I don't believe it's a good mystery. It's something, right? There's something about like, going back and trying to confront that you've done this, that you took someone's life. But they never do that because if they were, they would realize Stevie knew this guy.
Hold on while I need to pause the recording and text Anthony DePuzzo and say, hey, Jess is defending the mystery of the original film right now. I'm just teasing after our episode from Tuesday this week. But no, I agree with you. Sarah, do you have anything you want to add here about Stevie?
No, I agree with everything you say. I assumed it was her, like, from the jump too. They had a lot of shots where they were like holding on her, and I'm like, they could be trying to make her a red herring, but like literally where are the other characters? Like, we know it's not these 4 kids, like, so it's gotta be her. And I guess my only other qualm is also how the characters found out it was Stevie. I'm like, you had these kids at the church snooping around. You had Danica in there looking through books, and what, a cop comes in and sees a picture of Stevie and Sam Cooper on the wall? Like, clearly they didn't think about how they were gonna flush out this story, and they're like, somebody has to discover it, let's put a picture of him on the wall. And also, like, the flip-flop in Stevie, like, Stevie did genuinely believe it was an accident at first, because she said herself she was, like, racked with guilt. But then there's, like, the switch up of, like, I'm actually gonna punish you. I'm like, how did you make that jump? I mean, crazier things have happened in real life, but I would have liked to see how you made that jump. They just, again, I've said it before, I'll say it again, take a shot every time I say underwritten.
So my husband came out of the movie feeling like it was like very anti-male, and for me, I'm like, not really. It's just I know what he did last summer. Because you could say almost the same thing about the second one, except without the commentary inserted into it. And, you know, for me, you know, I love like movies like Blade Runner 2049. So and that's like you could look at that as female and still have a good time with it. But whatever. That's besides the point. But like when it comes down to like what we assumed, we were discussing it. Like I feel like what they cut out was that Ray was the one that talked Stevie into this, that she confided in him, she told him what happened, and he was the one who manipulated her. And I think that's why that therapy line exists. And I feel like they cut it out, and they were right to cut it out, because like what the fuck, like what is that? How do you go from? I can buy Ray doing something on his own, you know, especially the part where he was displaying the body, so it's like kind of undeniable with what's happening. But like the part where which, by the way, like, what the hell? I promised your dad I would take care of you, but her dad, like, skipped town and took all the money. Like, that doesn't make any fucking sense. Like, it's like there's so many different, like, versions of Stevie and Ray going on in this movie.
Yeah, I feel like I just spent the last 45 minutes being pretty negative, so I will end it with a positive.
Okay.
I enjoyed the actual like portrayal of the fisherman. I think he looked really cool. I think he had cool kills. It was fun that it wasn't just a hook. Like I actually really enjoyed that kind of opening sequence with the new alcoholic fiance and like the harpoon. Like there was a lot of tension there. I think they did that really well. Some of the visuals were nice. Like it aesthetically was a nice movie, but I mean, and at the end of the day, again, I didn't like it, but there were some things that were cool, and I understand why people enjoy it. I'm actually, as I'm wrapping this up, I'm shocked we didn't talk about Helen Shiver. So as soon as I saw her back, I was like, that's our girl. That's Sarah Michelle Gellar. I know those shoulder blades. I'm a Buffy stan. And I'm like, what in the world are we going to do here? Okay, I'm always excited to see her. I love Helen. I think they missed the mark on this. They made her nasty, and Helen was never nasty. Yes, she was that like preppy, ditzy, like little bitchy, but like at her core was like very nice. So it was weird that they made her so like mean-spirited in this like little dream sequence. I get what they were going for. They were trying to make it weird. They had her like decaying and like blood dripping, and they went for like the shock, but it didn't feel true to her character, so I don't know if I, like, really enjoyed it. I think they did it just to do it, right? It's the Skeet Ulrich of it all. It's the Billy vision. Like, they brought back a vision of a returning character. I would have been fine with just those little homages, like going to the gravesite. They saw her. They saw the pictures of her. There was the Croaker Queen float. It just, yeah, I have mixed feelings, because, yes, love to see her queen, but, like, I think they missed the mark on it.
And that's kind of where I stand. Like, it's so hard. It's hard to even talk about that, something that I should love, because, like, you know, is that, like you said, that's our girl. But at the same time, this was, not to take everything back to Madeline Klein, but it was from her perspective. So, of course, Madeline Klein would envision her as a cunty, 2025 Gen Z girl boss kind of being mean, and that's how Helen was depicted. I don't know, like, again, I thought Sarah looked pretty. I thought she acted the hell out of the material for, even if it wasn't Helen. Again, like, I think the best way for me to describe my reaction to Sarah is, was it a dream come true? No. Did I enjoy seeing her? Yes. I think there was a lot of Helen in this movie. Almost, I don't want to say too much, but almost too much. I don't know. Like, we get it. Like, I mean, we all love Helen. Like, I don't know. Yeah. Sarah, any final thoughts?
No, just Again, I'll just make one more comparison to Scream 5 and call it a day, but in like my own circle, because online it's very divisive, but in my own circle, it's getting the same reactions. People who really loved the original two, grew up on it, or what we would consider like OG fans, this did not sit well with them. But people who were like newer to it, or who came for Madeline Klein, just like people came for Jenna Ortega, enjoyed it. They thought it was like a fun, cool slasher. So like, I'm glad that people are enjoying it, but unfortunately, it just wasn't for me.
That's actually a really good perspective. I actually think that like this is even more divisive than Scream 5, but I think that there are similar buckets of people who are obsessed with the original versus people who are new or don't care as much. And so I think that's a good analysis of the audience reaction. Jess, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like when it comes down to it, my only ask, because it is so divisive, because I can do this, right? I don't really like the first two movies. I think I respect them for what they are. You know, I watched them. It's fine. But I acknowledge that I like this movie because it's not I Know What You Did Last Summer. You know, it's like acknowledging I like Ends or even Rob Zombie's Halloween 2. I like aspects of those movies, or I'm softer on them, or I appreciate what they are, because but I could say these are not Halloween movies because they're not, you know. So what I don't appreciate is, you know, people wanting to, just because they got here, that they want to hijack a franchise.
Yeah.
And, you know, like, you liked it because, you know, it's not what it's supposed to be. And we can be okay with that. As far as Helen goes, I felt excited to see her like everyone else, right? And I do agree that it wasn't her. And I feel like where, let's say Danica fails, where Helen works for you guys, is that there's something about Sarah Michelle Gellar. She has this soulfulness, she can just stand there and you can feel the frailty, her hurt, her pain, right? She just stands there and she's acting. Whereas I feel like Madeline Klein, which I didn't know existed before this movie, doesn't have that quality to her. You know, she doesn't have that presence. And so even though I feel like they kind of achieved the same thing with her character, if you liked her like I did, I don't agree with the take on Helen, because her true self is like Helen. So why is she envisioning a quote cunty version of Helen? That doesn't make any sense to me. I feel like they should have just had her show up and have it be like, you know, Danica actually feeling like, oh, I'm fearing for my future, and just let it be it. Also, the podcaster. Yeah. I liked her a lot. I felt that, that's what I'm saying, like the tone, like her tone, that belongs in like, you know, a movie like, you know, like Sugar and Spice or Jawbreaker or whatever the fuck, you know, but it doesn't belong in I Know What You Did Last Summer. But it was so fun. Yeah. And I would say with her, they missed an opportunity. I wish that they would have had her think that she knew the route that Helen took and have her fuck up. Right? Because I can't tell you how many times I watch one of these, put my makeup on and talk about true crime bitches, which I loathe, because they don't get the cases right. They get details wrong. And I'm like, girl, Google, please. Like, this is common knowledge, you know, about cases. And so I refuse to, you know, watch these true crime armchair YouTubers, because it offends me, because like, people died. Why are you not invested in at least telling the story correct if you're going to benefit and profit off of it? Yeah. So I would have loved that kind of commentary, that she thinks she knows, but she doesn't. And that's what cost her life.
Love that. Oh my God. And because Helen's chase scene is so iconic, right? You would think that, like, you know, that would be a cool thing to play on. Oh, I love that. That's so great. That's so brilliant. Oh my God. Guys, this was a wonderful podcast. Thank you for helping me review this and giving your perspectives. All right, everybody. Thank you for listening. We will see you next time.
All copyrighted material used or referenced in this show belong to their rightful owners and made possible by the Fair Use Act.
And number 3, never, ever, ever, under any circumstances say, I'll be right back. Because you won't be back.
Get another beer, you want one?
Yeah, sure.
I'll be right back!